On Christmas morning, my mother sent a text, "Christmas is only for winners." That night, they posted my sister unwrapping a new car, my brother toasting to success without deadweight. My son held my hand and whispered, "Mom, why are we the losers?" Months later, they knocked on my door, but I let them stand in the rain. "Mom?" Jordan asked, tugging my sleeve as we sat by the second-hand Christmas tree. "Why don't we have a big Christmas like Aunt Brielle and Uncle Caleb?" I tried to smile, hiding the lump in my throat. "Because we have something better," I said, pulling him closer. "We have each other." But when I looked down at my phone and saw my mother's text, "Christmas is only for winners," followed by videos of my siblings opening luxury gifts, popping champagne, and laughing about leaving deadweight behind, I realized the truth was heavier than I wanted to admit. That was months ago. Now they're knocking on my door, drenched in the rain, begging me to open it. And all I can think is, where was this family when I needed them most? Growing up in Asheville, North Carolina, I always thought family was supposed to be your safety net. Mine was more like a competition you didn't even realize you had signed up for. My parents, Walter and Janine, valued success the way some families value kindness or humor. If you weren't winning, you weren't worthy. My sister, Brielle, always had the golden ticket. The biggest trophies, the best colleges, the perfect wedding. Caleb, my younger brother, was the whiz kid who started his own company before his 24th birthday. Then there was me, Meredith, who married too young, had Jordan too young, and settled for a life that, in their eyes, reeked of failure. After my divorce, things with my family became strained. Invitations slowed. Conversations turned condescending. Advice started sounding more like lectures about how I'd wasted potential. I kept trying to bridge the gap, thinking that if I worked hard enough or stayed patient enough, they'd come around. They didn't. That Christmas morning, I woke up early to make everything feel special for Jordan. We didn't have much, but I had scraped together enough to buy him a used Lego set he'd been dreaming about, and a warm hoodie he'd pointed out months ago at the mall. I found a scrawny little tree at a thrift store and decorated it with handmade ornaments. I even baked cinnamon rolls from scratch, filling our apartment with a sweet, cozy smell. Jordan was thrilled. He bounced around in his pajamas, marveling at each gift like it was a treasure. His laughter filled the apartment, and for a while, it was enough to drown out the nagging feeling in my chest. Until my phone buzzed. I almost didn't look. Part of me already knew. There it was, a group text from my mother. "Christmas is only for winners." No context. No greeting. Just that. Almost immediately after, photos flooded in. Brielle unwrapping a brand new Tesla, squealing with joy. Caleb clinking glasses with his fiancée under a giant "congratulations" banner. Videos of my father toasting to success and moving forward without deadweight. They were celebrating. And I wasn't even a thought. I sat there frozen. The smell of cinnamon rolls turning sour in my nose. Jordan, noticing my silence, climbed into my lap and asked in that soft, curious voice only kids have, "Mom, why are we the losers?" It was the kind of question that sears itself into your soul. I hugged him tight, blinking back tears he didn't see, and promised myself, that I would never let him feel like a loser again. After that day, something in me shifted. I stopped trying to earn a seat at their table. Instead, I built my own. I picked up extra shifts at the urgent care clinic where I worked as an intake coordinator. I picked up part-time weekend hours at a local bookstore. Every spare dollar I tucked away. I lived lean, no Starbucks runs, no new clothes unless absolutely necessary, every luxury stripped down to bare bones. At first, it was exhausting. I fell asleep reading bedtime stories. I burned dinners trying to multitask. But slowly, steadily, things started to change. I found an affordable townhouse in a quieter part of Asheville, nothing fancy, but it had a little patch of backyard Jordan could play in. I enrolled in night classes at the community college, chasing the nursing degree I'd once abandoned. Jordan made friends at his new school. We built routines. Stability. And for the first time in a long time, I started to feel proud. Then, a few months after that awful Christmas, came the knock. It was a cold, rainy night. The kind where the wind howls through the cracks in the windows and the rain beats against the roof like drumsticks. I'd just gotten Jordan settled into bed and was sitting at the kitchen table with a mountain of homework when the knock came, loud, insistent. Peeking through the peephole, I saw them: Walter, Janine, Brielle, Caleb. They were soaked to the bone. Walter's once pristine trench coat hung limp and heavy. Janine's mascara ran in streaks down her cheeks. Brielle clutched her designer purse like a lifeline. Caleb kept checking his phone, fidgeting. I didn't open the door. Instead, I sat down on the couch and listened as they pounded and shouted. Meredith! Come on, open the door. This isn't funny. We need to talk. Jordan shuffled out of his room, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Who is it, Mom? Just the rain, baby, I whispered, and pulled him onto my lap. We sat there together, listening to the storm. Eventually, the knocking stopped. The next morning, taped to the door with soggy duct tape, was an envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper: family comes first. Call us. No apology. No explanation. No acknowledgement of the pain they had caused. Just a demand disguised as an invitation. I tossed it into the trash without a second thought. Since then, little ripples of their downfall have reached me through town gossip and mutual acquaintances. Caleb's startup had collapsed under allegations of financial misconduct. Brielle's husband had blindsided her with a divorce and taken half of everything. Walter had suffered a mild heart attack, and Janine, always too proud to ask for help, was struggling with the mounting medical bills. They had built a life on winners and losers. And when they fell, they remembered me, the loser they had cast out. Funny how that works. After that night, they tried again. Not with apologies. Not with accountability. Instead, they sent postcards with breezy updates, like we were still on good terms. Brielle mailed Jordan a birthday card 3 months later, stuffed with a $20 bill and a note that said, "Hope you're being a good boy." Caleb sent a mass text announcing his new engagement, attaching a glossy photo of himself with a painfully young-looking woman flashing her engagement ring. My parents sent an invitation to Walter's 68th birthday dinner at a private club downtown. Each message landed in my mailbox or inbox like a stone thrown into a pond. Each one sank without making a ripple. I didn't respond to a single one. Because by then, I realized something crucial: forgiveness doesn't mean reinstating the people who hurt you. It doesn't mean handing them the tools to hurt you again. Jordan was thriving. We spent weekends at the public library, devouring books. We planted herbs in mismatched pots on our tiny back porch. I saved up to take him to his first baseball game in Charlotte, and when the team won in extra innings, Jordan squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. "This is the best day ever," he said, smiling so wide it lit up his whole face. Not a car. Not a champagne toast. Not a trophy or an Instagram-perfect photo op. Just a day spent together. Real. Uncomplicated. Enough. Around early fall, something shifted. Jordan came home from school, dragging his backpack behind him. "Some kids said Grandma and Grandpa are really rich," he muttered over dinner, pushing his peas around his plate. "They used to be," I said carefully. "But money isn't everything." He looked up at me with that same searching look he had given me last Christmas, the one that made my heart break and swell all at once. "Did they ever love us, Mom?" The question knocked the air right out of my lungs. I could have given him 100 complicated answers, talked about conditional love, about pride, about how sometimes people only know how to love what's shiny and impressive. But looking at him, I knew he deserved the truth in the simplest way. They love what we could be. Not who we are. He sat with that for a minute. Then he nodded once, decisively, and went back to eating his peas. In late October, the final crack came. I received a long, rambling email from Janine. She wrote about how hard things had been lately, how proud they all were of me for getting back on my feet as if I had been crawling, and how family should stick together no matter what. The kicker was the last line, "You'll always be our daughter, no matter how stubborn you're being." There it was. No regret. Not reflection. Just manipulation dressed up in concern. I stared at the glowing screen for a long time before clicking archive. Not even delete. Just putting it away. Not worth another second of my energy. The holidays rolled around again, almost exactly a year after that cruel Christmas morning. Jordan and I had made new traditions by then. We picked out our own scrawny tree from a lot down the road, even though we could afford a nicer one now. We baked gingerbread cookies that came out slightly burnt at the edges. We made hot chocolate with too many marshmallows. We stayed up late watching old Christmas movies where miracles happened not because people earned them, but because they were kind, brave, and good. One night, just before Christmas Eve, Jordan curled up next to me on the couch. "Mom," he said quietly, almost sleepily. "Do you think they miss us?" I thought about the nights they had stood outside in the rain, about the postcards, the invitations, the emails full of empty words. "Maybe," I said honestly. "Maybe they miss the version of us they wanted. But that's not who we are." He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he whispered, "I like who we are." I kissed the top of his head and wrapped the blanket tighter around us. Outside, snow started falling in fat, lazy flakes, covering the world in quiet white. Inside, it was warm. Inside, it was enough. The days leading up to Christmas passed in a slow, content rhythm. Jordan and I wrapped presents in brown paper bags we decorated ourselves. We made garlands out of popcorn and cranberries strung on thread. Every night, we sat by the fireplace, a small electric one I'd found at a second-hand shop, sipping cocoa, reading from a worn-out book of Christmas stories. It was simple. Unpolished. But it felt more real than any holiday I'd ever had growing up. Which is why, when the second knock came, 2 nights before Christmas Eve, a part of me already knew who it would be. This time, I didn't even bother peeking through the peephole. I opened the door just a crack, just enough to see my parents standing there in the dusk. Walter looked smaller somehow. Thinner. The lines around his mouth were deeper. Janine clutched her purse to her chest like armor. Both of them wore the strained, brittle smiles of people trying to hide their desperation. "Merry Christmas, Meredith," my mother said, voice tight. I said nothing. I waited. "We were hoping to come in." "Talk," Walter added, clearing his throat like he was about to deliver a speech he'd rehearsed in the car. Behind me, Jordan poked his head around the doorway, blinking sleepily. I saw Janine's eyes flick to him, her smile faltering for just a moment before she plastered it back on. "You've gotten so big," she said too brightly, like a stranger trying to make conversation with a child on an airplane. Jordan stepped back behind me instinctively. I didn't invite them in. I didn't ask what they wanted. I just stood there, letting the silence stretch out between us like a heavy fog. Finally, Walter shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "We realize there's been misunderstandings," he said, each word carefully chosen, as if afraid of saying something that would make me shut the door completely. "We miss you. Both of you." I studied with him. The man who once slammed his hand down on the dinner table because I brought home a B+ in math. The man who told me during my divorce that failure ran in my blood and he was disappointed but not surprised. Now he stood here, coat collar damp with mist, reaching for something he had thrown away. I didn't move. "It's Christmas," my mother said, voice softening in that fake, coaxing way she used to use when she wanted me to do something. "Family should be together." The word family hit like a slap. Not because I didn't believe in it, but because they had weaponized it for so long that it no longer sounded warm, it sounded like a trap. "We're fine," I said, my voice steady. Walter opened his mouth to argue, but I closed the door gently before he could speak. No slamming. No screaming. Just finality. Through the closed door, I could hear my mother crying. I could hear Walter murmuring something, maybe trying to comfort her. I leaned my forehead against the door for a moment, breathing in the quiet of my own home, feeling the weight of 100 old memories press against my back, and choosing not to open the door to any of them. Behind me, Jordan tugged on my sleeve. "Are they gonna come back?" he asked, voice small. "Maybe," I said truthfully. "But we don't have to let them in." He nodded like he understood something deep and ancient, something it had taken me half my life to learn. We went back to our cocoa. Our fireplace. Our safe little world. Christmas morning dawned soft and pale, the sky outside a wash of gray and silver. Jordan and I opened presents slowly, savoring each moment. A hand-knit scarf I made him. A hand-drawn comic book he made me. Around noon, as we were baking cookies, the doorbell rang again. This time it wasn't just my parents. Brielle stood there too, wearing a heavy designer coat, her makeup perfect despite the cold. Caleb was beside her, hands shoved deep into his pockets, looking everywhere but at me. They hadn't come empty-handed. Brielle held a giant basket wrapped in clear cellophane, full of chocolates, wine, expensive cheeses, neatly folded gift cards tucked among the treats like flowers. Caleb clutched a small, wrapped box, probably something flashy and thoughtless. I didn't open the door fully. I didn't even pretend to smile. "We thought." Brielle started, her voice trembling slightly, "We thought maybe we could start over." Caleb added, "Yeah, things got messed up. But we're family." The words sounded rehearsed, foreign in their mouths. Like they didn't believe them either but thought maybe they could say them enough times to make them true. Behind me, Jordan stood quiet, watching. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. I looked at my siblings, two people who once toasted to a life without deadweight, and felt a deep, echoing hollowness inside. "You can leave it there," I said, nodding at the basket. Neither of them moved for a moment, like they thought if they waited long enough, I'd cave. I didn't. Finally, Brielle set the basket carefully on the porch step, like it might shatter. Caleb muttered, "Merry Christmas," almost under his breath. I closed the door again. Softly. Firmly. No anger. No drama. Just done. Later, after Jordan and I finished baking and the house smelled like cinnamon and vanilla, we sat at the table stringing more popcorn garlands. I caught him looking at me thoughtfully. "Mom," he said slowly, threading a piece of popcorn onto his needle, "you know what I think?" "What's that?" I asked, smiling at his serious little face. "I think winning isn't about who has the best car. Or the most money. I think it's about being happy with what you got." I blinked back tears. Not the sad kind. The kind that comes when you realize you might just be doing something right after all. In the days after Christmas, the gifts stayed untouched on the porch. The basket started to wilt under the winter weather. The wine bottle eventually tipped over, rolling against the bottom step. The small wrapped box Caleb had brought became soggy, its paper bleeding into the concrete. I didn't move them. I didn't claim them. I let them sit there, a silent, rotting monument to what they thought could fix things: money, appearances, empty gestures. Neighbors probably noticed. A few must have wondered why we'd leave such an expensive-looking gift outside. I didn't care. Because I wasn't going to do what they expected, sweep it all under the rug, pretend none of it ever happened, let them slide back into my life like they hadn't gutted me and my son last Christmas. They wanted forgiveness without change. Reunion without repair. And for the first time in my life, I understood that I didn't owe them either. The final act of closure came quietly, almost without planning. A few weeks into the new year, I got a call from a law office downtown. Apparently, Walter and Janine were selling the house I grew up in, the big sprawling colonial with the wraparound porch and the cracked tennis court out back. The house that had hosted 1,000 tense family dinners and cold Christmas mornings where approval was the only real currency. The real estate agent had suggested reaching out to family members to see if there was any interest before they listed publicly. A courtesy call. I could practically hear my mother's fingerprints all over the suggestion. Some desperate, last-ditch fantasy that I would come running back, wallet open, heart even more so. The lawyer politely asked if I wanted to make an offer. Said it would be easy to work out a family-friendly price. I didn't even hesitate. No, thank you, I said. I'm not interested. The lawyer sounded surprised. Probably used to families where nostalgia blurred memory. Not mine. But the call gave me an idea. Not a cruel one. Just a clear, final one. I took the money I had been slowly saving, the emergency fund I'd built working 2 jobs, sacrificing every small luxury, and I put it toward a down payment. Not in my childhood home. On something better. A cozy little craftsman-style house just a few streets over from where we were renting. A home with creaky wood floors and a deep front porch and a backyard big enough for Jordan to build a treehouse if he wanted. It was ours. Not tied to old ghosts or old wounds. Ours. On moving day, I posted a single photo on my Facebook account, a rare thing for me. A simple picture, Jordan sitting on the porch steps, holding a sold sign, grinning so wide you could practically hear his laugh through the screen. No fancy hashtags. No gloating. Just one caption, build something better from scratch. Yellow heart. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't send it directly to my parents, or Brielle, or Caleb. But I knew they saw it. The messages trickled in over the next few days, first a congratulations, from my mother, layered with saccharine sweetness, then a terse, one-word nice from Caleb, a more formal, brittle proud of you from Brielle. None of them said what they were really thinking. That I had done it without them. That I had proved them wrong. That I had won, but not by playing their game. I never replied. Not out of bitterness. But because there was nothing left to say. Winning wasn't about humiliating them. It was about living well without them. It was about showing my son that real success wasn't cars, or money, or toasts to winning, it was safety, kindness, integrity, peace. It was about proving, once and for all, that losers like us could build something better than the brittle, shallow empire they had worshipped. One evening, a few weeks after we'd settled into the new house, Jordan and I sat on the porch steps, drinking lemonade from mismatched mugs. The sunset painted the sky in deep orange and purple streaks. Mom, Jordan said, swinging his legs over the side of the step. I'm glad we're the losers. I laughed, a real, full laugh, the kind that bubbles up from somewhere deep and good. Me too, buddy, I said. Me too. And we sat there, in the house we built with our own hands, our own choices, our own love, watching the sky burn beautifully around us. No need to look back. No need to let anyone back in. We had already won.